We all carry a story. The content of a story depends on several factors. When we were born, where we were born, to what culture and religion, the color of our skin, gender, and of course, what social class we are born into. These choices have already been made for us, and we have no power, no control over them. In this, we are all equal. I call it the lottery of life. Now imagine that you are born in a country that you believe to have good values. From my experience, I can tell you that not everybody gets that. You grew up playing with children in your neighborhood. I didn't. You go to school and you learn how to read. I went to the streets and I learned how to beg. You go to sleep in your bed every night. I had no bed. My experience of life is that it gives us a lot, takes away a lot, and that it teaches us, sometimes the hard way, to ask for help. Sometimes we need that someone somewhere reaches out a helping hand so we can try to start rebuilding what got broken. But what happens when no one reaches out a hand for us? There are many different kinds of battles being fought every day. In ourselves, in our cities, and in the world. Something I learned is that in war, no matter what kind, survival is everything that matters. I was introduced here today as Christina Rickardsson, writer and businesswoman from Vindeln, Sweden. But I was born as poor and homeless Christiana Mara Coelho in a small town called Diamantina in Brazil. One rainy morning, when I was 15 days old, my mom took me to my first home, a cave in the wilderness of Diamantina. I lived there for 5 years. Our cave was more like a small crack into the mountain. And if you're thinking that we were a community of people living out there together, that was not the case. It was only me and my mom. I remember the hard times when we had no food, the ache from the empty void in my stomach. I remember the poisonous animals like snakes, scorpions, and spiders. And sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night shaking one of those off my body, knowing that one bite could have killed me. But I also have sweet memories from my first home. I remember sitting on top of our cave, looking out over the beautiful wilderness, while my mom told me stories about God and all the saints. And because it was only me and my mom, I got all her time and all her love. But one night, things changed. We got chased by men and dogs out of our cave, our home, and we barely made it out without getting captured. After that, nothing was the same. My mom and I moved to São Paulo, and because we were poor, and although my mother struggled to get a job, nobody wanted us. And if life had been tough for us in our little cave, it was nothing compared to what it came to be on the streets of São Paulo. We ended up in one of the favelas, and we slept on the streets, begging for food, begging for money. Everyday people passed us by. Some of them were kind. Some spat and kicked at us. Some called us cockroaches and street rats. Some people passed us by, pretended they did not see us. I think that was the hardest part. For the rest of the society and for the rest of the world, we didn't exist. While my mom struggled to get a job, I was left alone on the streets of São Paulo, trying to fend for myself. A girl alone, a child alone on the streets, doesn't survive for very long. This was a lesson I came to learn the hard way. Before the age of 6, I didn't have a close friend. But on the streets and in the favelas, I came to know a little girl. Her name was Camille. She became my best friend, my sister. We did everything together. We shared all the food we found equally between us. Camille was what we in Sweden would call precocious. And she had an amazing ability to tell stories. And she enthralled children and adults alike with her colorful and beautiful stories. She showed me how to survive on the streets. Through her, I met new street friends. Together, we all survived by stealing, rummaging through trash cans, and protecting each other. We became a family. One night, when Camille and I decided to sleep in the outskirts of the favelas in one of the more affluent areas, something happened that changed me forever. I remember waking up that night, hearing voices, and I got scared, and I woke Camille up. And we decided to look around the corner of the building where we were sleeping. We saw men with guns, and we saw children standing in a row. The man we saw was military police. We knew what that meant. All street children do. We decided to run for our lives when one of the men spotted us and yelled, "There we have some more, get them." Camille and I ran for our lives. And though Camille was older than me, I was the faster runner. I turn around and I see how 2 of the men caught up with Camille and captured her. I was on my way to run to her to try to help her when I hear her panic screams telling me to run away. One of the men comes toward me, and I panicked and I fled for my life. After running for a while, I realized that I'm no longer being followed. And I decided to go back and try to help my friend. I'm now standing around another building, a corner of another building, and I see that my friend, Camille, is standing in the row with the other children. And while I'm trying to figure out a way to help my friend, I see how something strange happens to her forehead and how her body falls to the ground in the strangest way. One of my hands comes up to my mouth and stifles a scream. I turn around and I ran as fast as I can, all the time picturing my friend's body falling to the ground in the strangest way. I lost my friend my sister, that night. But I didn't only lose her. I also got a front row seat to understand how little our lives were worth, how they could so easily be taken away. I was about 7 years old, and the understanding of what my future had in store sank in like a stone sinking with assurance to the bottom of the ocean. I had no future. Camille had never even got a chance. This was one of many things that I experienced during my time on the streets. I don't know how many hours or days I slept under a staircase where Camille and I used to sleep sometimes. But eventually, my mom found me. I told her what had happened, and she listened while stroking my hair. After I told her everything, my mom stood up and she said, "Christiana, promise me something. Promise me that whatever happens in life, never stop walking." I didn't understand her then. And I asked her, like children often do, "Mom, where shall I go?" And she replied, "It doesn't matter, just never stop walking." She reached out her hand for me, and I put mine in hers. And I remember that we stood up and walked away. I didn't understand her then, but when I got older, I did. And I had never stopped walking. It became natural to me that my book about our lives should have that name, Never Stop Walking. When I was 8 years old, life gave me a new ticket. I was adopted. After years of fighting for survival, after years of hunger and different kinds of abuse, and after years of no hope for a future where I could make something of myself, my ticket took me to one of the safest, most equal, and solidarity-strong countries in the world. My ticket took me to Sweden, where things that had only been a dream for me became reality. No, I'm not saying that the change was easy, because it wasn't. I experienced inner war for survival, one coming from a huge cultural shock and identity crisis, among many, many things. But I got a chance that millions of people around the world pray for every day. I got a chance to fulfill my dreams. I didn't only get a chance to fulfill my dreams, as I also got a chance to create a new future, and that is important. Now, given how the situation is for millions of people around the world, I wanted to take this opportunity not only to share my story, but to shine a light on their stories, and remember that we all carry a story and that every story counts. Picture all the street children around the world fighting for survival, not understanding why their lives are less worth. Think about the refugees in Europe begging for a new beginning. This is happening right now, today. And honestly, yes, it can get overwhelming when you start to think about all the wrongdoings and all the struggles and battles that are being fought every day. But no one is asking for you to save the world and make everything that is wrong and unjust with it right again. What I'm saying, what I'm asking for, is that you try to understand that what you have been given is something rare. Your ticket is worth so much. And when you can help someone that needs it, don't turn your back. I believe and I think that it is important that people are not judged by how they treat the privileged or most famous people in society, but by how they treat the less privileged ones. I would like to end my talk here today with 2 thoughts, 2 questions to all of you. And they are, what ticket did you get in the lottery of life? And how do you want to make that journey? Thank you for listening and never stop walking. Thank you. Thank you.